Before this video goes up, I have an idea that I'm going to put these questions out to anyone who's interested in watching this video, because I think we owe it to everybody who might be interested in this level of just like horrible decisions based on root, to have to grapple with them on their own before they hear our answers, because that's cheating. Here we are. I am in the game garage, and we have today Sam Smith of Lord of the Board, and we are joined for another If Shelves Could Talk, our new kind of channel where I get to do a really fun thing, which is not just me play board games by myself, but I get to talk with other people who love playing board games. So Sam Smith of Lord of the Board, as I said, I'm sure if anyone knows my channel, they don't need any help finding yours, but I will definitely have the, all the deets down below. Thank you so much, Sam, for coming on tonight and talking about what we're going to talk about, which I think we're both pretty passionate about.
I'm stoked. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I cannot wait. It's going to be super, super fun.
Absolutely. So we'll get right to it, because the people who are watching this, you've already read the title. So this is kind of the gauntlet of the 5 questions, and the way I pose it, kind of like the choose your favorite kid sort of questions, the ones that have no right answers, just like the ones you feel least bad about saying in the moment. These are not binding when any future expansions, including the one that we have both supported, but any future things coming out, these could change, or they could change tomorrow. So no one at either of us that, this is all fluid. So our 5 questions. So we're starting with the easy ones, relatively. None of them are easy. And as you are the guest, I will let you answer the first one first. So
Of course.
Your favorite faction based on mechanics. I switched these. I had it themed, but we're starting with mechanics, like the actual gears in motion of how they play.
So this is a hard one already, because we're coming from the background of like, we just love this game for everything in its entirety. So choosing anything feels like I'm neglecting everything else.
Well, and also there are supporting roles. Like mechanics don't exist in a vacuum. Like if the people aren't playing ball, one faction's mechanics may fall flat. So it is a loaded and difficult question.
Here's what I'm going to go ahead and say for the purpose of this meeting here. I'm going to say lizard cult.
Okay.
And here's why. Mechanics wise, I think they're truly brilliant. And I love their, like, they're almost off. Okay, this is really hard to explain. It's basically like their gameplay is very much not like any of the other factions. Obviously, they're kind of all, separate from each other, but the lizard cult even more so. And the reason why I would say that is because, first of all, you're building up these gardens, so you're incentivized to spread around the map. Right. Little do you know that the lizard cult literally does not move. You're literally just placing lizards. So you place lizards in places where you eventually want to build gardens, but you really can't move. You're literally immobile. Then once you get the gardens out, you want cards of the same suit in order to score. And so you want to build the gardens to collect the cards to score off the gardens. Right. And the more gardens you build, the different suits, you're going to be getting more cards, meaning more options to score. But I love that like tug of like, okay, if I build one line of gardens, I'm going to get a lot of points every time I spend a card. But if I, build 2 of each type of garden, I'm going to be getting a lot more cards, and I can score 3 times in a turn. That alone is really cool. But you're getting more cards, so you can score more as well. And then all of that to say that now there's this whole outcast mechanic in the game where the discard pile is getting all of these cards, and you're calculating what the outcast is going to be. And so you're trying to get a lot of cards. You can use those discarded cards to inform the outcast. So you can try to manipulate the outcast on your turn. It's a beautiful like design of like, you build gardens, you get a lot of cards, then you discard cards to try to inform the outcast for your next turn. And then you use all of the lizards that died that round to work in your next round. And like that seems like crazy for people. Like when I'm explaining the lizard cult to people, and I explain it much better than that, you know, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but
Yeah.
when I explain that, like, this is why the lizard cult doesn't get wins. This is why people don't understand them, because they're genius, but they're so complex. Everything like flows from one mechanic to another to lead to the way that they work, but it's still tricky. It's very, very tricky.
Well, and also as soon as one player like gets the inkling of like,
Oh,
I can also influence this thing,
yeah.
it gets like, you know, 4-dimensional chess going on. And because it's like people who are just like, well, yeah, I'm getting rid of this card because it's going to influence the thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
it can get real weird real
And you can get
quick.
political with that too. You can be like, hey, if the table wants to start discarding mouse cards, I can actually keep the Marquise player in check. I can go ahead
Right.
and transform their building into a garden. Like there's all these like weird ways of working together, and that just like was always interested me. They're really good. I love the Lizard Cult
Yeah.
so much.
I
They're
also
great.
I also love, I need to point out the passive aggressive like purity of, if the table wants to do like, instead of like if individual people, like if the table wants to do what's best for the game, like that's the best way.
Oh, I'm terrible. Yeah, that's
So
exactly how I would phrase it.
so I think I've wrestled with this one a lot, and I think I came into this with some things kind of set in place and others like kind of all on a bench, and we'll see what I feel like in the moment. And I'm gonna go with probably a weird one to most people, including myself, which is the Marquis de Cat as my favorite
All right.
mechanical, because I feel like while they're the most, you know, they're the classic like bread and butter, just like kind of starter faction, they really aren't. Like they don't have, especially in the original four, um, there is less overhead on some of the concepts going on. But once you actually get into the gameplay, the fact that you are in all of the spaces is like, to me, this perfect distillation of what makes Root different. Because you're like, I'm everywhere. You guys aren't. But as soon as you're in, you're like, oh no, this is a giant liability. Like
Yeah.
this isn't good. This is just like super anxiety inducing. And
Mm.
then like the whole production line of having to rule up from where you make the wood to where you want to build something, and the fact that they are the one faction that can get wiped from the map and does not have a way to come back, which I have seen, is like, I like it because of its failings or its weak
Yeah.
points,
Yeah.
because I like the concept of like, you know, it's just so simple. Like, I'm making this and fine, blow up my building. I'll make it again and get the victory points again. Ha
Hmm.
ha. But it's just so the mechanics of it seems simple and it's absolutely not, which is like the 10-cent version of Root writ large.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
I've actually had a lot more success teaching the Corvid conspiracy to new players than I have Marquis de Cat. And yeah, it's just, I mean, different strokes for different folks, for different
Yeah.
players, different teachers. But yeah, they seem like the vanilla faction, and then you start to play them, and you're like, ooh, actually, this is kind of, I don't know if I like this. So that's to me what really makes that one stick out in a not stick outy way, I
No,
guess.
I totally get that. I totally get that. And like the funny thing is like, yeah, it's like the recommended beginner faction, but I don't give it to beginners anymore because
Right.
it's just it's too much. You're giving them so much information. They control the whole board, and a lot of people just attack the cats just because
Right.
it's easy. So
Oh
you're
yeah.
getting all these little attacks, and you're like, okay, I'm immediately super stressed.
Yeah.
So there's just different ways to go about it now that we have more factions and everything. But
Right. For
they
sure.
are genius, though. I totally agree with you. I totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
So question 2, and I'll kick this one off. I'll let you percolate on it. And this is our favorite faction based on theme. Um, and for me, this one is completely divorced from my actual gameplay, how I've done with them, my performance with the faction, and that is the Riverfolk Company. And I am in love with just the fact that there is this hullabaloo of all these animals vying over whatever it is, a mountain, a lake, a river, a forest, and the otters are just like, you know, we could do, we could sell some root tea, or we could
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
we could
yeah.
help you out in this fight. I just love the theme of that, and the fact that they are, you know, on the lake doesn't make quite as much. It's not as hilarious, but like the forest having a river, I just love like there's a war going on, and just like this raft of otters is just like, hey, you guys fighting? And let me help for a
Yeah.
fee. I've done terribly with this faction, and I've seen someone else do equally terribly. I love the faction. I hope one day to have a good game with them. But that's one faction where the other players really do need to play ball, at least a little bit, or the person piloting them needs to be smarter. So I'll work
Yeah.
on one of those two things.
I love the river folk. So thematically, my favorite faction, thematically, has got to be the Woodland Alliance. Because here's my thing. Here's the reason why. In the base game of Root, when I was like kind of reading the breakdown of all these alliance, like these factions, there's like, you know, the government essentially, which is the Marquise, you know, the warring faction, which is the Eerie. You've got the little vagabond, the annoying guy.
Right.
And then we've got the Woodland Alliance. I was like, okay, wait. So the animals that are represented by the suits on the board are a playable faction? Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Delightful.
And I was like, yeah, I was like immediately just like, this is probably my favorite faction. And it is still to this day my favorite faction because of its theme and also because I like the way they play. But we're talking about theme right now.
Right.
Here's the deal. The fact that they're like a group, like a ragtag group of like all the just the denizens of the woodland, like banding together, gaining sympathy, revolting in clearings randomly, like I just don't think that this game could get cooler. Like that is the most cool concept. The fact that they don't even start on the board, which makes complete sense because the revolution hasn't started. They're still spreading the word. It's like your early game is you spreading the word, and then once they finally do that first revolution, you can just see them burst like wildfire and they spread out from this like central point. It is like the most thematic thing ever. It's crazy. All of their like battle and move actions are only on the evening portion of their day of their like board. That's crazy thematic. It's like, look at that makes sense because you know they're like working against the government here, so they'd only do their operations at night. Like, what? How is this a real faction in a war game right now, and why does it work so well? Like, to me, every aspect of them just like thematically just works so well. And coming from a background of like, I love musicals, I love Les Miserables. That's just immediately where my brain went, was like that revolution. And so I was just like, match made
You
in heaven
hear
for
the
me.
woodland sing.
Yep. I was just like, there it is. I found it. The theme is perfect. Green. I like usually the green color faction. So I was like, oh gosh, there's just nothing bad about
a
it.
match made in heaven.
It was a match
perfect.
made in heaven. Yep. I'm still in love with them. They're great. Oh, so good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That again, like cats starting everywhere, birds starting in one, vagabond doing his thing. Exactly that when I taught it to the second group I played it with, and I played as the Woodland Alliance, and they're just like, where are your pieces? And I was like, funny you should ask. And then when I told it to them, they were just like, whoa, because you know it was a part of a gaming weekend, and we had done Rising Sun, we had done Cthulhu Wars, we had done just like everything, and I mean it's like days of just going at it and having a great time. And you know most games start with a little bit of parody, at least close to it on the board, and the fact that Woodland was honestly like, yeah, we'll get there, like just so cool. You know, watch your back is all.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome.
Well, we're getting into tricky territory here. Not that we weren't already there. Number 3, the top 3 faction Meeples from bronze to gold. So what are your and I believe for those doing math at home, the first pitch is to Sam this time. So what are your from your third favorite Meeple to your all-time favorite. And again, this is, I forgot to say at the beginning, this is not including Marauder, because that is still work in progress. We know a good amount about it, but we're not casting judgment until we have that box in our warm, shaking hands.
Shaking hands. It's true.
Warm homes or shaking hands, whichever.
Oh no, I completely agree. This was a hard one for me. This was a tough one, and it's still tough. Like the words that come out of my mouth right now, I mean, just let's not repeat anything, but
Fair.
you know.
It ends here, except for the recordings.
Yeah, it's fine. So for me, we're gonna go from bronze to gold. Okay. Yep. So my bronze pick, and I'm assuming that this includes all the Vagabond individual meeples.
Yes.
Okay.
Should you choose to go that? Yeah.
Phew.
Right.
Okay. So my bronze pick is gonna have to be the Lizard Cult meeple.
Okay.
I really like the expression of the Lizard Cult meeple and the color, just that bright neon green. I love that. I just love the little smirk. You know, they're just so cute. They're lizards. Second, this one is a little bit tough. Okay, just bear with me here. We're gonna have to go with the crows, the corvid. I love the fact that the mouth is just like wide open and they have that like full eye.
That's like looking back this way.
Yeah, that like blank chaotic energy. I just like, they just look like they want to blow up everything. And it's just wonderful. I love the vibe of that meeple, just that dead face. You just like, I love it. That one is a really hard one to choose, like over some, both of these were really hard to choose over some other ones. My favorite meeple by far though is got to be the vagrant meeple. So that's the possum. It's that white color with the pink lining, and I love that meeple so much. I think it's the cutest thing, but it's also terrifying. It might just be because of the artwork, but I like the meeple, so I don't know. This is a really hard one because there's so many. I mean, the reason why we love Root is because the meeples are just so cute and simple.
They're all so good. Yeah,
they're all so good.
Which is why, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the first two questions, like we can go to sleep being like, okay, I'm pretty happy with that answer. But at this point, I feel like the difficult decisions really begin. Yeah. Of like choosing one meeple over another is, I mean, these are like millimeters apart, I feel.
Yeah. No, seriously. And every single one of the other ones is fourth place at the moment because it was so hard for me to move any of them above others. But like, if I had to choose three at the moment, it would be those three.
But don't worry, it's not binding.
It can change any day.
It can change any day, or even right after this. Okay, well, my bronze is going to be the moldy toasts of the Woodland Alliance. They are like, of the original package, is just like the standout of just like like energy, I feel, and their little like eyes. It's they're just wonderful. My second is actually also the crows, my silver. And I didn't even think about the manic, like, want to blow up the world energy. I'm actually coming at it from, I don't know if you've ever played Monument Valley, the iOS, or probably on Android as well.
You know, I've definitely seen it, but I've never like downloaded the game.
Okay.
But now that you say that, I know exactly what, I feel like I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, I don't know if they're in the second one, but in the first one, there are like these crows and they're exactly like, they're just like a triangle and a round head and eyes that just follow your person wherever they are. And so when I saw them on, the final meeples, I was like, yes. They're also, I love yours gives depth to it. Like just these bomb throwers of just like, where should I put it?
Just the chaotic energy, man. It
exactly.
Freaks me out so bad.
And then my gold is actually your bronze. The Lizard Cult, I feel like, and I think it's a big thing with the color. The color is just like delightful. I love but the shape, the expression, the color, they are for whatever reason, and that's what this list is for, is the for whatever reason, here's my answer sort of answers. But that's whenever I get to play them or even play against them, I begrudgingly look across the table. I'm like, man, they're so cool. I guess my faction's cool too, as my like little meeples are like crying.
Yeah.
But you know, it's we can't all be blaze yellow lizards, I suppose.
I like to call it frozen yellow. I think that's the best description of it. Because I used to have these shoes. I know. I used to have these. I used to want these shoes that were considered frozen yellow shoes, and they're the exact color. They're the exact color. So I've like called them frozen yellow, but it might just be like a sneaker term. I don't think it actually is a real thing. You know what's really funny? Now that you're saying that it's your top, I just want to move mine to gold.
Nope, I already said it.
Awesome to second. But you know, after this, anything could change. That's
true. Yeah, for the remainder of this call, you just have to sit with what you've said.
I'm sitting with what I said.
As soon as we're done.
I feel like I've cheated on them.
That's the best part about it, though.
I know.
Okay, well, it gets better because number 4, and now I get to start, or I rather have to start. Number 4. So part of the beauty of Root is that they all have these kind of like roles that they play in this drama. But if you really inhabit that role, you can kind of see their side of it. I feel like on most of the factions of like, oh, this is what they're fighting for. And then as soon as you take on another role, you're like, oh my, that's awful. Like what you're doing is terrible. So it's very gray area, which is, I think, is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to deal with any of that. This is an objective scale from good to evil. Which factions are the 2 bookends for you know, you're like objectively good and objectively evil. And I personally, I love your face. That is the energy I was going for.
It's just so hard.
It is really hard. And so personally, now that I'm here in the moment, there is a depth to be plumbed on the vagabond, but I honestly, the individual roles, which you may have come up with, but I did not, and now I'm questioning myself. But like I said, we're going with it. We'll do it live.
You gotta keep judging.
So my 2, I'm just gonna tell them like both right away and explain my reasoning. Are the 2 bomb thrower factions, and I think the good faction, in my eyes, is the Woodland Alliance. And the bad faction is the Corvid Conspiracy.
Okay.
And now this is another plug. This does not include Marauder.
Yeah.
Which, spoiler alert, our answers might change. But the Woodland Alliance, I feel like everything you said, like these are the woodland creatures. They didn't choose to have their like backyard be this battlefield, and you know, they're going to just try to stop it in a way, in a language that these other factions speak, which is violence. So I feel like it's a righteous cause, which again, if you step outside of that, it is a very, we don't need to go down the like dark pathway that could lead. Like righteous causes are not, as history will tell us, are not always to be just like check, totally moral.
Right.
So this is all, there's a big asterisk after all these answers. Now on the other end of the spectrum, the Corvid Conspiracy, they also have a very real, like, you all are messing this up vibe. Like their energy is very similar to the Alliance, but the thing that makes it interesting is they don't have the like the uprising. They don't have the support tokens. They're just like, you all are doing this wrong, so I put a bomb here. Like in my mind, the Woodland Alliance is like, we like, we're gonna blow up this space. but like they're like this fist is like all the critters are like, we know, and we're cool with it. Like Corbin is like, they're like whispering to themselves, and everyone else in the woods are like, what are you saying over there? And the crows are like, totally nothing. Boom. So,
so
those
true.
are my two bookends.
Oh my god.
For right now. Again, could change.
For right now. So this is kind of like my own little viewpoint of this. So this, I'm not trying to create waves, don't come at me in my DMs after we're done here, right. People listening, because like, I know this might make some people mad, but okay. So
I'm excited now.
Yeah. So here's the way that I've genuinely seen the play out of all of this. Okay. So we've got the fact that the Erie existed in the forest before, right? I don't think that the Woodland Alliance were super mad about it. I think there was a lot of order going on, in my personal opinion. So I think that when the cats came in, there was a lot of changes of power. This was a weak point, and so then the Woodland Alliance revolted. So in a way, I think that the Erie dynasties really wasn't bad, because I think that their rule was an environment where the people of the woodland were comfortable. However, the Marquise, being the outsiders warring in, which is literally how they're described, I'm thinking, that kind of changed up the whole dynamic of the woodland. So I'm paint the Erie in a too good of picture, because I think that the state that we see them in is one where they're just trying to reclaim their homeland. Really, they ruled the whole forest. They're birds. And now they kind of lost it, so it's a kind of a complicated, like, I think that the woodland and the birds kind of could have coexisted, because we've got birds in the trees and then woodland on the ground level. But then when the cats came in, they were killing all the Woodland Alliance. So then the birds were like, what the heck? So I don't know. So that's the way I see it. I see the Erie as kind of, they were doing their best to rule. It was an environment that worked for the Woodland Alliance. That's kind of my thing. That might be a spicy take. I don't know. Here's the even spicier take, because even with the cats taking over the land, I still think that there is a faction that is just terrible, worse than even the cats. I know I'm sorry, everyone. But okay, the Riverfolk Company is the most garbage faction based on purely what they are and what they do. Here's what I see. I see a group of otters that came down the river to profit off of war. First off, I'm thinking, okay, that's terrible, and that's because it is. Second of all, the payment, objectively, it's just terrible. They're profiting off of other people's war. It gets worse, my friends, because their only payment of acceptance is their own people. So not only are they profiting off of the other warring factions, they're also animal slave traders. I mean, they're literally taking in the animals of the woodland and giving them their services. I just can't think of any other faction that is more cruel, but that's got to be the worst out there.
Now you made an excellent case for this. I say I'm sticking with my answer like it's an option, because we've already gone over that it's not. Like, it's stamped, but this is really shaking me a little bit now. And it's so funny, because like earlier when I was talking about how their theme is my favorite theme, I put it in this like I put it in this like Mickey Mouse going down a river sort of vibe. And gosh, now I feel like what the animators who made like mid-century cartoons, who then later on became woke, as opposed to those who are just like, nah, man, insert bad opinion here. Like those who are just like, oh no, why did I make that decision? Oh, that's a really troubling.
That's just the way that I've seen it. And here's the thing, I still love playing them. They're super fun. No harsh feelings. They're hilarious.
They are war profiteers.
They literally are.
That term is
even
shall we
use.
say, problematic.
It is a little bit, yeah. More profiteers that only deal with animal trading. That's a little
Right. I didn't even think about that part because I was looking at it from a mechanics thing, like the world of Cole Worley, like zero sum, like economics, like this
yeah,
is like, well, we have to use this for coins, we have to use this for money. Like I was just like, oh, it makes sense. And what's interesting is how impactful that is on some factions as opposed to others based on how many warriors they have. I
right.
didn't even think about the thematic implications of giving them some of your happy critters.
I
Oof,
know.
that's
It's pretty cruel. I
that's
know. The moment I came to that conclusion, I was like, I don't think that there's a worse faction out there yet. At
man.
least from the terms of like ethically, like they're pretty terrible. The
Yeah,
lizard cult's pretty close, and the corvids. I think those would be like maybe the three that are really complicated.
right.
'Cause the lizard
Yeah, yeah.
cult's a little complicated too. We could get into all of that, but I'm still sticking with the river folk being probably the most
Okay. Now,
yikes
the way
ethically.
you were leading up to it, it seemed like you were winding up for your Grand Slam is that your like bad faction was going to be the Woodland Alliance. And I was just
Oh.
like that they filled the vacuum of like used to be birds, cats came in, Woodland Alliance became this thing. And I was going to be like very, very distraught. Like I'm like
Oh,
a
there's no
6
way.
distraught. That was going to be like a 10.
It's really tough for me to put Woodland Alliance not as the good,
Yeah, yeah.
but I really think they are a part of the good
Right.
team if there was. I just think that the Erie were also there.
No, that's a really interesting historical take on the Woodland Alliance didn't exist before. Maybe there's a reason for that, but
Yeah, maybe the rule was better before the cats.
yeah.
Who knows?
Well, we've made it this far. Here
Whew,
is the
I'm
fifth
sweating.
and most difficult, which might be difficult to accept given how much consternation the first four have given us. Here is I'm going to just go with past Kyle's verbiage on this. I'm going to read it word for word. Cole Worley made a deal at the crossroads, and he got to make the incredible game of Root. But every owner has to choose and exile one faction after their first year with the game. Which do you exile? So this is, Cole, if you somehow wind up watching this,
He will.
I absolutely do not suggest that such a deal was made. I'm just revisionist history for the sake of talking. If the success of Root, hint, major success of Marauder expansion, continued success of this franchise came from some sort of deal that every owner just has to give up one faction. They have a year to play everything, and then they have to lose one of them. And Sam, I have to admit, I wound up putting you in a difficult place because I gave you the first as the guest. You know what? I am honorable. I will let you choose. Would you like to lead off, or would you like to follow on this question? Because I just kind of tossed you under the first place one, but there are only 5 questions, so I feel a little guilty now.
Okay, so I when I saw that this was a question, I was thinking very hard about this one. So I have my reasons. So I could go first. I think I could go first.
Okay.
I'm just afraid that we both might have chosen the same faction.
It's entirely possible.
I'm afraid.
I mean, I suppose we'll just have
Well,
to.
I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Patrick Leader, I still love you as a person, and I love what you do. If you're watching, I just want you to let you know that there's no disrespect to you and your character and who you are. The Vagabond, I would have to say goodbye. The whole shebang, the whole Vagabond class, everything about the Vagabond, goodbye. Here's the thing. This is really hard to say because here's the thing. The Vagabond does make Root. In fact, every one of these factions makes Root.
Oh,
So
I'm aware.
This is only if I had to do this. Okay, I'm trying to pick one. If I had to pick one, it would have to be the Vagabond. Here is why. I'm
Okay.
giving reasons because I don't want to feel like a terrible person. I know there's a whole squad of vagabond stands out there. Okay,
Oh yeah,
I
just look at the
understand.
app. Look at the.
I understand that there is a whole squad. So the reason why the vagabond for me would be the first one to go would be because they don't deal with the same problems that other factions have to deal with. And I think that them leaving would be easiest to keep Root feeling like Root, and keeping Root innovative and different with the existing other factions. Because for me, the Vagabond one doesn't have to worry about rule.
Mhm.
They're only one pawn instead of an entire army. Um, they don't deal with any of the other mechanics the same way. Like buying from the river folk is different for them than every other faction. So really we could be solving a couple of problems
Right.
rules wise by getting them out, because they always have to make an exception for the vagabond class, like for literally everything. The only thing is I don't know how ruins would work. Would ruins stay on the board, or would ruins be gone? Would the maps just be empty all the time? Because I really like the ruins. So
Right.
it's really tough for me to say this, but still, at the end of the day, I would say that Vagabond's got to go, because at the, I mean, even at a base level, like I don't want to give a beginner the Vagabond because they're so complicated. I mean, they were a really tough faction to understand, really.
I have
But at
made that
this,
decision, that mistake
yeah,
of
they're
be like,
tough.
no, your items are just what you can do, and people are just like, I don't know what that means.
What? I know it
Yeah.
seems like it seems easy for a gamer to understand, but like when you give it to
Right.
like somebody who's trying to learn, it's like there's too much to do. There's too much to do. And it's just like this
Mhm.
overwhelming, like I can just do anything I want to do. I can do anything I want to do. And I do like that about the Vagabond, but at the end of the day, they work so differently than the other core faction. They don't have the same political problems. They're usually not in the realm of like the same making of deals that other factions are in, because there's no space presence that they have to worry about.
Right.
um and they score for everything. So when you have a
Oh
good
yeah.
player, that when you have a good player playing the Vagabond, they are unstoppable unless you knock them into the forest. And sometimes that's not fun. Like for me, I understand how this works. I understand that I have to send the Vagabond to the forest once in order to be balanced, twice in order to be fair. But not everybody in the game understands that. So people will
Right.
take it personally when I'm like, yeah, I'm going to attack you first turn when you don't have a sword. I don't have to be the bad guy anymore if I say goodbye to the Vagabond. So it's, I mean, for me, it solves a lot of like problems, but I would never wish this upon the game. I still love the Vagabond in the game. It's just that this was a tough question, Kyle.
This,
Thanks.
that's You're welcome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So your worry about our us choosing the same faction was well founded, and up until, this is not me like just making it up now, up until like earlier today, I was ready to come in here and say Vagabond because of mainly the teaching,
Mm,
and the, like you said, the fact that they don't have to deal with the logistics of being
yeah.
an army in a
Yep.
game of armies, aside from them, and it just kind of like complicates things, and also just sort of makes things weird in different
Mhm.
ways, that some are interesting and some are frustrating. Like you said, the having to like slap them, like backhand the Vagabond once, like just to keep them in check, like like you said, against people who are uninitiated, they may be like, whoa, Sam's a jerk. so so I don't need to feel bad about like going after this guy, whereas other people who know the game are like, no, he's just the first one who did the thing someone needed to do.
Yep.
But I'm actually gonna go again. There are no easy answers here.
Whoa, you're
I'm
changing
not
it up.
I'm not gonna go Vagabond. And I thought about this earlier, and I was just like, are you prepared to do this? Because my favorite thematic faction, the Riverfolk Company, I personally would be would be prepared to say goodbye to.
What? What is happening right now? Is this real life?
So,
Really? Okay.
so
Man, I know they're bad animals, but geez, out of the game
Right.
entirely, you're gonna have to explain yourself.
So the just like a record scratch, like pull the needle. Like before this video goes up, I have an idea that I'm going to put these questions out to anyone who's interested in watching this video, because I think we owe it to everybody who might be interested in this level of just like horrible decisions based on root.
Yeah.
To have to grapple with them on their own before they hear our answers, because that's cheating. That's cheating.
Yeah.
Because then they can just like, troll us for our answers, or to be like, oh yeah, I'll do that one that they did.
Yep.
I challenge anyone who's made it this far in the video, who came here, who watched it, who's now, to be, are you really happy with your decision? Because I'm not happy with my decision about the Riverfolk Company. But to me, I am 100% admitting this is probably coming from a place where I'm not good with this faction, nor have I seen them. I have seen other people in like replays, and I've seen strategy guides, and I have heard that Riverfolk Company is not only viable, can be dominant, and is in many tournament spaces. I am prepared to say goodbye, to let them just sail on by the river, and they came in from the north, and just let them go out the south. As much as I love like the everywhere but one in the old setup system for cats, one for the Erie, nowhere for the Woodland Alliance, I do really love the concept of a one, like an army of one, just like a link, just like going around, just like and just like doing their thing in the forest. And I know that this faction has its issues. Again, see the app. and the Tinker. And there are challenges that exist in this space. And so maybe this is where we're coming at it from a different perspective, because I think that I like the concept of it, and I'm choosing this really difficult decision to say goodbye to a faction that I just admitted that I like their theme the best of all of them. But I just really, I think it's really interesting that in this game of armies, there is a army of one. Like a lone.
Yeah. I think
I'm immediately not. Yours, your lizard meeple answer, it took me answering for you to feel uncomfortable. I immediately feel uncomfortable about my answer. And I will admit, I have seen your face and your response to my answer. But even just like the feeling of it coming out of my mouth, I'm not pleased with.
Yeah, that was spicy. Woo! I feel
hot take.
Yeah, hot take. I think what the most interesting thing about this, though, is that I think that we both understand this game very well, because if you look at the two factions that we chose to let go of, let's just look at them for a second here. They both are almost, what's the word? Given special favors by the game's design. Like, the Vagabond works off of the ruins. The Riverfolk works off of a river. These two things have to exist on every map because of these two factions.
Right.
In a weird way, they're both kind of problematic, as they're just the only ones that were ever able to like worry about that or deal with those things.
They're being subsidized by Leader Games.
Yes, exactly. So it's just interesting. I am very interested to hear what other people would say for like letting go, because if anybody says the Woodland Alliance,
well, it's what is crazy to me is that there are 8, and I mean the Vagabond we are considering it a monolith. We are losing all Vagabonds, so that is like,
like the class is gone.
Have pity on Sam, because he decided I killed all otters. Sam killed all the races and all the types of vagabonds. But
oh no!
Sorry, not killed.
Gone.
we exiled.
I exiled them.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
just
my
didn't
favorite
exist.
meeple is one of them.
Oh, that's right. So we both made some.
Oh.
We both made some pretty harsh.
It's
Okay,
it's a tough take. Okay,
this
it's
is
tough.
on the altar of these 5 questions that I came up with in my darkest hour of running. I feel like the greater powers that be are happy with the internal struggle that we have created.
Yes.
since both of them were things that we previously were like, I love this the most, and I will also get rid of it.
Gotta go. Yep, we both went through it.
Yeah, but it's incredible that even with not including Marauder, which is probably maybe a little bit Cult of the New, but even if that was included, I would definitely not get rid of either of those.
Yeah.
Like the rats or the badgers.
Yeah,
I
they were
like them
needed.
very much.
Yep, they were needed in the game too. Very needed.
Yeah, but there are 8 factions, and it's incredible to me to think like I had this hard of a time to come up with one of them that I could do without. Like
Yep.
that's pretty impressive that is the world in which we play of Root. So well, I mean, we made it through the gauntlet just barely by the skin of our teeth, it sounds.
I'm sweating.
I'm also sweating, but also because my garage is hot. What am I?
I'm sweating from straight stress.
I'm at 78 degrees in here. So it's
man.
So I have stress plus the weather, but
Oof.
yeah, it's I mean, I'm glad if I had to walk this path, I would, I'm just glad I have someone to commiserate this pain with.
Yeah.
Because it was bad enough when I was just like kind of ruminating about my answers on my own. But now that I have someone else to be like, oh no, they're having a hard time with this too. I'm just like, nice.
Oh no.
And when it's his turn to answer, I can just like recline and just pretend like I don't have another difficult answer to give. But I mean, that's our game of Root, and why we love it so much is because we don't want to let any of it go, even the stuff that we think is problematic, or the meeples we don't like as much, or the mechanics or the theme, or we want it all. And soon there's going to be this whole other mess of, I mean, there already technically is with the hirelings PNP wise, but like that's going to be a whole nother difficult question. Which hireling do you kick to the curb? Like,
oh my gosh.
But
yeah, we've got a lot of space in this type of a discussion.
For sure.
Yeah, tune in next week for which part of the day cycle we're going to get rid of.
Right.
Oh no, let's not go there.
Sucks.
But wait, that destroys one faction's eligibility. Oh gosh, that would be crazy. Oh man,
that would be wild if you had tournament rules where you just did away with one. Oof. Or hold on. Or you choose your factions, you choose your setup, and then each turn you roll a die. It's a 6-sided die, but on 2 sides of each of the 6, it says bird, day, or evening, and you lose that for the turn.
Oh, dude, if you're playing Woodland Alliance and you lose an evening, or if you play Woodland Alliance and you lose a bird song, oh my gosh,
or
terrible.
Vagabond and you lose a bird song, and you're just like, whoops, nothing. Right.
You're just stuck in the forest.
Or worse, you're just stuck in a clearing, and you're like, boy, I hope no one sees me as a threat.
Oh, that would be terrible.
Man, Direwolf.
Some weird root right there.
Direwolf, that would be one hell of a mod.
That would be hilarious.
I don't know what, like Ragnarok. Root
Ragnarok. I like that. ROOTnarok.
You're losing a part of the day each turn. No, what is this going to be? That would be rough though. If it was like every turn is like evening, dude. And Woodland Alliance just like, cool. I'm glad I showed up for this
game.
That would be. I mean, maybe if it's cycled, maybe if it was like the sunset, like you knew, like your first one was rolled.
Yeah.
And then after that, it just like went from evening to birdsong to day to
Just some
evening.
weird cycle of it.
So then you had to like galaxy brain think about like not only what you're going to do next turn, but what you're going to do next turn without that third of the dude.
Yeah, dude, that would be cool. That would be something else.
You heard it here first. When we look back at like 2030 and the like and the world root champions, where like this is now standard of just like, oh yeah, they're using like the time of day mod. It started here. In a sweaty garage.
We had
made just difficult decisions, and we got rid of the Vagabond and the Riverboat Company. And neither of us are happy about it.
Don't remind me.
Well, with that, before my garage gets any hotter, Sam, thank you so much for when I came up with this idea, I immediately thought of you as a person just crazy enough and into Root enough that you might be into collaborating this way. And I am more pleasantly surprised than I ever thought that I could be, because not just in your difficulty in these answers, but my own, now that I'm having to bounce them off another human instead of just my own head. So thank you for being a sport. And I am also interested in the tale of this conversation of different strokes for different folks applies 100%. To all 5 of these, especially the last 4 or the 4th and the 5th rather.
Yeah, 4th and the 5th were a bit spicier. It was kind of like, here's some nice, mild flavoring, and then it's just like Diablo.
Yeah, exactly. It was like chips and salsa, chips and queso, chips and guac, and then it's just like pouring hot sauce on our tongue for the last 2. Now that I made that metaphor, I really thank you for doing this, because who would sign up for that? But again, if you somehow know Give Pause Hobby, but you don't know Lord of the Board, you should, because I own a sweatshirt of Lord of the Board. So if you're coming here and you don't know that channel, like, I don't know what you're even doing. And this was a blast. So again, thank you, Sam, for coming on and being a sport and dicing up this game that we both love so much, because it takes a special kind of resilience to do
Definitely. We got to have an episode 2 sometime. It was great. That was
for sure
fun. I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sam, and thank you for those who watched. We'll see you next time.